This is Changing Channels with Larry Walsh, the Channelnomics podcast that connects you with channel chiefs, thought leaders, and executives about what it takes to get the next generation of tech to market. Here's your host, Larry Walsh, the CEO and Chief Analyst of Channelnomics.
Hey everyone, Larry Walsh here at Changing Channels. You know that I talk a lot about distribution, about cloud services, about managed services, and recently I've been looking at the SMB segment, small and mid-sized businesses. This episode, it will involve all of that. And you're going to note in this episode a theme of disruption. That how we can grow into trends, or a company can grow into trends. So let's start off with this entire macro topic of cloud and distribution. You've heard me talk about this before. There are many vendors out there questioning the value of distribution as more technology is moved into the cloud and sold as a service. You hear vendors talk about tapping into the value propositions and the reach of managed service providers. And there's an increasing trend to look at the SMB segment because of the recessionary conditions that are causing vendors to slow down their spending. So this typically happens in economic hard times, is that vendors who focus typically on enterprise will then shift down to try to attack SMB, thinking that it is a ripe opportunity. There's a company I've been following for many years because they've just been interesting. And there was no guarantee when they started out about a decade ago that they were going to be successful being a cloud distributor, catering to small businesses and selling through the channel almost exclusively through MSPs. The company I'm talking about is Pax8. And Pax8 is a disruptive force. Yeah, and I hear about this all the time. Many of you have probably heard about it as well, is that Pax8 is the, at one point they even called themselves, I'm having a conversation with their leadership and calling themselves the Un-Distributor. They are not. In fact, they will even call themselves a marketplace. Others will call them a next generation distributor. They do have flavors of all of this. But the one thing Pax8 is doing is that it is one of the pioneers of driving more services through the channel into the SMB segment, and really changing the way that a distributor helps MSSPs or MSPs engage and build cloud practices. So I thought it was a good time. They've hit that inflection point. Pax8 is now doing $1 billion a year in annual recurring revenue. They're continuing to grow. Their presence is becoming beyond noticeable. It is unmistakable. So I thought it'd be a good idea to bring on their founder and CEO, John Street, to talk about the Pax8 model, its disruptive energy, and where it's going. So with that, John Street, welcome to Changing Channels.
Thanks, Larry. Good to see you, always.
It's good to have you here. So, John, you and I have known each other for a while, as I've said, and Pax8 is not a new company any longer, but it's still relatively new to a lot of people out there. Why don't we start by framing what Pax8 is? What is Pax8 what's your mission? What makes it different from conventional distributors, or even if you want to be called a distributor, but really what is the core value proposition and mission of Pax8?
Well, the mission, Larry, is actually to become the world's favorite place for IT professionals to buy cloud product. And we really looked at this as a true marketplace. So the idea of distribution itself, when we formed Pax8, was, to us, it was kind of anachronistic. That the traditional IT supply chain that was set up in the 90s and the late 80s and 90s with the advent of PCs really needed a refresh for the cloud. And so we really looked at it with two value propositions in mind. One for the vendor, and we had experience. My last company was MX Logic. We were quite popular in the channel. We were an early SaaS company. And what we discovered was that cost of customer acquisition at the small business level was very prohibitive for most vendors, that you needed effective aggregation at the SMB layer of the market. So we solved that proposition because we're very, very much more cost effective for SaaS companies to acquire small business customers than going direct. And so the second problem we solve is for the MSP, because they really don't, they're building a cloud practice. We're really their go-to assist kind of person. And they really aren't necessarily good at selling product, and the vendors want to get to them. And if you're just a line item in a catalog, that's nice if you're a very proficient seller of product. But for a lot of the MSP ecosystem, particularly with the small business crowd, the MSP themselves isn't going to be very, they really want somebody that's much more knowledgeable about the cloud products. And so we give them a really, sort of a curated experience in the marketplace, so they can really understand the cloud products and how it fits into their sort of horizontal strategy of moving everybody to the cloud fully. And we could go deeper into items like security and other things.
So you mentioned this about your experience with MX Logic, and MX Logic, for those of you that don't recall, was a security company that catered to selling security services through MSPs, or managed service providers. Was it that the inspiration of this is that you saw that there was this gap between availability of product, or the point of sale to distribution, and the ability to enable the partners, or like the MSPs that you were dealing with, to do something different or do something more? Was that the gap you saw?
It really was. I was new to the channel. I honestly never even considered, leveraging the channel until we started MX Logic in 2004. And our original go-to-market strategy was to sell through the telcos, because we were really doing email, we were doing anti-spam and email security. And at that point, you had a lot of endpoint solutions to do that. And we went pure cloud, and we began to really understand how these MSPs sell things. And they're great technical people, but they really don't know how to schlep product. Okay. It's not in their wheelhouse. Their customers love them, but I can't tell you how many MSPs said, I hired some sales guys and they don't sell anything. And I know, I've been doing this forever. Selling is a team sport, and it's good to have a bigger sales force. And so you start looking at it in a more aggregated way. And if you make it a team sport, when people are getting a lot of rejections when they're selling, they have teammates to pull them up, and they kind of celebrate each other's wins. And for an MSP, they're an 8-man engineering shop. They hire one sales guy, through the yellow pages at him, said, get us some more clients. And they wondered why the guy quit after 3 months, So we tapped into that. And my team said, well, how are we going to make it easy? And I said, here's how we're going to make it easy for him. We're going to sell it for him and give him the account. And I was met with sort of this incredulousness by the MSPs. And it took us about 2 years before we got to the Glengarry leads, because really we said to the MSPs, tell us your customer base and we'll sell this for you. And they wouldn't give us the good stuff till later. And we had to build this trust, which, I came to realize trust in the channels is uber important. So I learned that lesson early at MX Logic, and we were very trustworthy guys. One of the reasons when we chose this Pax8 business to start, I said, we'll have a leg up on the other guys, because a lot of the guys in the channel knew us as the MX Logic guys, and we were quite well received in the channel. Okay. So, and to my board, they were like, well, if you sell it for them, why not just sell direct? And I said, because it isn't about the first and second sale. It's about the 10th, 11th, and 12th sale. You teach them how to fish. And that's precisely what happened. So we saw that. And then along the way, I started leveraging Ingram and Arrow. And Ingram in particular, I became their poster child for their seismic program, if you remember that, back in the 2006 to 8 kind of time frame. And I really couldn't understand what value they brought to the table. It was, to me, like the sales guy who brought in a client for dinner, and 4 months later, after just the introduction and you've done all the hard work of selling, he shows up to collect his commission check. And for me, it was like, I don't think that works. And And there was a lot of complaints from both vendors and MSPs alike that they don't really get much out of the distribution layer. So when we sold MX Logic in 2009, I knew I had one more in me, and I kind of took my time, kind of coming back, and spent a couple of years in there having a lot of fun. And then really in 2010, early 2011, I sat down with my co-founder, Klaus Dimmler, and we started studying big macro opportunities. And, we looked at a lot of things, but in the end, I said, Klaus, if we fix the ecosystem of IT distribution to a more modern, you're not distributing anything anymore. There's no physical distribution. It's about product merchandising. I told my team I want to be known as merchants of cloud. They said that's too consumery. So we kind of tested the message, and in 2013 I went out to we formed the company, and the observation I made with Klaus is I said, this is a really interesting concept because we talked about it in terms of, I said we should really do iTunes for cloud apps. And Klaus said, that's not a very good analogy. I said, but we want to stitch together these things so they're all interoperable and work together. He said, that's impossible. And I said, don't you think somebody's going to do it? He said, yeah, somebody will do it. I said, well, why don't we do it? He said, you're crazy. And of course that attracted me to do it for sure. And off we went. And the observation I made at the very beginning was the good news, bad news, good news scenario is, the good news is nobody else is going to do this, because the bad news is it's going to cost a lot of money to get it off the ground. The other piece of bad news is the way I did all the financial modeling. I come out of a public accounting background. I'm a CPA, so I did all the financial forecasting. And the model until you hit critical mass, the use of capital looks very inefficient. And I figured nobody was going to fund it. Then go back to the good news side is I've made a fair amount of money along the way, so I could personally fund it. And I have good friends that also I could count on to be good angels through the build years. And so off we went. And sure enough, we found ourselves years later, we're so much more advanced than people who now understand the concept. And what I feel very vindicated by is, as you know, I came talk to you, and I think it was 2014. We launched this thing, and I talked to you, and you said, I love the concept, but I think you're going to go broke doing it. And I was feeling like I was about to go broke because, this thing we were 12 million into it before we started seeing real traction, and we thought we could get out for maybe $5 to $7 million.
Well, to be fair though, John, I didn't say that I think you were going to go broke. I thought you were early.
Yeah, you did say that. You told me you were early and you loved the concept. And I took that as that was a real, for me personally, Larry, I'd just like to say to you, that was very encouraging for me to hear, because I was getting doors slammed in my face like, this is a crazy idea. Well, you said that to me, and I know you know a lot about this stuff. And I did get, there were people that were encouraging me to go on. And of course, the vindication at this point is now everybody's talking about marketplaces. And I feel like it was kind of a term that we were coining back in 2013, and people are scratching their head like, what is that? Yeah. So it's really fun to see the market sort of come around and excuse me, and really understand the concept of it. Okay. Right. And it really is true. I mean, I could really sum it up. I mean, we knew that the legacy distributors were going to struggle to really cannibalize their legacy business to move to a pure cloud kind of environment. And we've seen them do it. I think they're pivoting well, and they're going to end up being, good players in it. But we've snuck in there and really gotten a nice market share, and we're doing quite well.
Well, you are doing well. I mean, so you're right. 10 years ago, nearly 10 years ago, you and I had that conversation. And I remember you were not looking very optimistically at your future.
It was tough. I tell you, I got all these, we're booming. We're north of $1 billion in sales now and 1,600 employees. And I have all my friends tell me, you must be under all this stress. I said, this is not even close to the stress that we had white knuckling our way through the lean years where we're just trying to make payroll.
But that's the point, though. So it reminds me of what Hemingway wrote in The Sun Also Rises, describing the guy describing how he lost all of his money. He said, gradually, then all at once. But for you, it's the opposite, right? Is that you were losing money in the beginning. And then
right.
You really got that traction that puts you on that hockey stick growth. What was that inflection point? Or was there a point in this over the last decade of your development where you hit that inflection point where you said, yeah, we got this now?
I think it was more market condition than us. I mean, we just kept plugging away, and we really had a chicken and the egg problem at the beginning because we started to approach vendors, and I have a pretty good network of people I know. So we got a few good vendors in there, but generally the reception we received was we go say, look, we want to sell your product to the resellers. We're not going to resell direct to the end user. We're going to resell to the resellers. So a distribution, traditional disty kind of play. And we got the door slammed in our face because the first question was like, who are your customers? And I said, I don't have any of those, but I'm going to get some. And then I'd go to the MSPs and say, buy your product from us. And they're like, you don't have any product. So, we kept plugging away. We get 8 or 10 partners in, and we can sign up one more vendor. And, 3 years into it, we have like 7 vendors and 300 partners. And so, it's just not critical mass that you can hang your hat on. One of the really transformational pieces was we did a strategic deal with Arrow Electronics. I know Mike Long quite well from Arrow, and really one of my favorite people. And he loved what I was doing, and he really didn't have any presence at the small business level. But his comment to me was, with your vision and our heft, we could probably make a dent in this. And then he had one other nice, convenient thing, which was he had a direct relationship with Microsoft. And I had approached Microsoft early on and basically got laughed out of the room. I had no customers. I want to be a CSP2 in their environment. And it's like, not happening. And, I kept plugging away at it, but, I figured I'd get there at some point. But we needed the whole business. We needed to land and expand, and we needed that one anchor product to start selling. And so we did a strategic deal with Arrow in 2016, and we started selling Microsoft. And that gave us, now we started to add a lot of partners fast. So we started to build up the partner ecosystem. And in those years, we still had to pitch hard to get product into our marketplace. And now, we kind of really started seeing it go straight north in late 2018, early 2019. And now we have, we have vendors lining up out the door to get into the marketplace. It's the whole situation's flipped now because we do have critical mass. And now we currently serve over 400,000 small businesses through a network of, we have, I think, almost 17,000 buying partners now. So we've hit the critical mass, and we really believe by the end of this decade, we'll have 2 to 4 million small businesses around the world servicing maybe 100 million people. It really scales beautifully. And the star of the show, Larry, is the total addressable market. It's a massive market. And the value proposition is very easy to explain to the SaaS companies. I got today 400,000 end user customers, but I got this network, and I could get you into tens of thousands of customers pretty quickly with your product. If we get the rhythm down of the selling into this ecosystem. And for the MSPs themselves, we do a lot of helping them understand how to build their cloud practice. And we're almost marketing as a service for them, understanding that their biggest struggle, they get demand from their customers, but we do a lot of things to make it very easy for them to onboard new cloud products and to answer their own customer demand. and really show them how to build an effective cloud practice and simplify provisioning and billing. So we're very popular in the channel.
You make reference to Pax8 being more of a marketplace than anything else, but you are thought of as a distributor. There's many people out there that refer to you as a next generation distributor.
That's right.
Or a cloud distributor.
That's right.
What is it that you do differently that the traditional distributors don't do? Because if you look at the incumbents in the market, and I'm not just talking about the big guys, I'm talking about even the regional distributors, they all have cloud practices. They're all slinging cloud licenses and subscriptions on behalf of vendors. What makes Pax8 different and more effective than, say, what's being done, out in California or down in Florida?
It's really the little stuff. I found this forever to be secret sauce. This is my 5th significant startup, and we've always had super healthy culture. It's all the little stuff, really. But I guess the best analogy I could use, for those of your listeners who have shopped at Nordstrom's versus, say, Sears. We give you a curated experience. So you're talking to knowledgeable people who understand our product, that really get the gestalt of the MSP practice itself, especially at the low end of the market. And the bigger distributors, they're very happy to work with the larger MSPs, but there's a burgeoning crowd at the low end of the market. And this is a place that we're trying to establish real dominance at the small business layer. And the beauty of it is, and this is something that we predicted as well, the small business is really it's really interesting to watch, Larry. Small business is going to be a badge of honor in another decade, because you have the Gen Z crowd kind of gets it right. It used to be sort of a snub. People say, you're a lifestyle business. You're a lifestyle business. You're not really a professional business. You're an amateur. And the fact is, by the end of this decade, being a lifestyle business is going to be a real badge of honor, because you can actually earn a great living. Everything's remote now, and you could be a lifestyle business, and you could really manage your life in a really, really healthy way. The Nordstrom's experience is really very apt. If you've shopped at Nordstrom's as I have, it's my preferred place to shop. If I need clothes or I need a pair of shoes, I walk in there and somebody knows everything. Somebody will walk me around and get me all the stuff. I'm not a browser. I'm a buyer when I go in. And this is the real difference between Pax8 and any other traditional distributor. And it really should be, the nomenclature should really be a marketplace. It's a curated marketplace. You could get any kind of cloud product you want, where our vendor line card is expanding rapidly all the time now. So you go in and you could get certain products, and not only can you get the products, but you're going to talk to somebody who knows the product, and they're going to really be able to talk to you about the value proposition. And we give our MSPs, ammunition of why your clients need this product. So it's very helpful. And, we have a tremendous following in the channel, and we're not having to do that much marketing to get new people in the tent, because we've gotten a very good reputation, and that trust level started early, and we think it's built on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, just to close out this analogy between Nordstrom and Sears, is that Sears was, for particularly any of the Gen Zs out there, Sears was the original Amazon before there was the internet and even a telephone. And John, as of February 15th,
I'm dating myself by talking about Sears.
Well, I was going to say, as of February 15th, there are only 43 Sears stores left in the U.S.
It's an amazing tale of hubris that went wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to say that I'm drawing a parallel between the experience of Sears and the legacy distributors, because my opinion is that they have a lot of value still too.
Oh, listen, they're fine. It's again, the star of the show is the total addressable market. When we've conceptualized this, we really looked at that there will be, all of the big hyperscalers have marketplaces, right? Amazon has marketplace, and everything revolves around something that hooks into their main products, right? And so we said, what there is sort of a chance to be Mall of the Americas, where you're neutral. everything interconnects to everything. And so for a SaaS vendor, they don't have to necessarily build an instance to go into the Amazon marketplace, but they probably will. But to catch everybody else, there's going to be room in the market for 2 or 3 or 4 of these that are going to be really, large, very proficient cloud marketplaces. And we figured we could have a seat at the table. And we really have gotten there. And it's quite fun. We're one of the very few new companies that have now work with Microsoft, and we're managed globally through the international team at Microsoft. And we got a seat at that table because of all the things we're doing with Microsoft. And that's the way we look at ourselves, as we're the upstart, and the incumbents will be fine. They just had to go through a transitionary period, but the long-term outlook for those guys is great, as it is with us. And if we're 8% of the market, we'll be a $75 billion company. It's just such a big market.
But you keep saying that the star here is a total addressable market, and I really love hearing particularly from the large analyst firms that talk about the total addressable market, the TAM for the IT industry. Gartner and IDC are pegging it somewhere around $4.5 trillion globally, still growing around 5% year over year. But it's really the serviceable market that makes a difference. And for those,
I'll tell you the quick math that we do.
Please.
Okay. So you take it, we look at that $4 trillion market, and we say, maybe 20% of it is going to buy through traditional, 2-3-tier distribution. Okay. So knock it down to 800 million to a $1 billion market. I mean, trillion, it's 800 billion to $1 trillion market. And we could transact at that level, we could transact 8% is $80 billion of business in that kind of a marketplace. So it's just a massive number. And that's really how we looked at it when we started the company. That's what made our decision easy to pick this. Let's jump into this IT distribution and fix it and really modernize the way it works. So we can't get to the full $4 trillion market, because that's not the way a lot of people are going to buy a lot of that service revenue, a lot of other stuff. But just the sheer push of SaaS product through that actually use, that you sell to the reseller to sell to the end user. So two-tier model. You could even cut it down to 400 billion. And that's kind of a conservative number. So if we sneak in there and get 8% of 400 billion, do the math. That's a $32 billion company. So
it's not inconsequential. But what I was going to say, though, is that so many other companies out there eye the SMB segment of the market with this greedy eyes, for lack of a better way of describing it. And I recently did it on my other podcast, in the margins I was saying is that whenever I hear vendors say that they have to address the SMB segment, the first thing that comes to my head is that they ran out of enterprise opportunities. That there's something else, right?
We're seeing a big pivot right now to the small business market because of our so-called recession we're going to have.
Right.
And a lot of the large enterprises are taking a wait and see attitude. So my favorite thing I hear now is, wow, our pipeline's better than ever. And it's like, that's because you're not closing anything right now. But there's a lot of pivot now to maybe we should really focus on the small business market, because it's a sector we've left we really haven't focused on it.
But John, it's hard.
It is hard. And this is why we're perfectly positioned, because we've cracked this code. And we literally, I could show you economics. We're just a more cost-effective way to get to that market. And if you look at just SaaS economics itself, if you as a vendor look at Pax8 as a large Fortune 100 company you're selling to, then the pricing model justifies itself, because if you're not really, maybe a lot of companies aren't processing a 30-person law firm. They don't want to. It's ankle biter stuff. They don't want to deal with the service layer. We have this beautiful service layer built in through the small MSP crowd. These guys are really technically proficient. They know what they're doing. And this is one of the things we recognized early on. SaaS product has a lot of margin in it. You know, if you resell infrastructure and on hardware, which traditional distribution did, those are very thin margins. Okay, so when you look at SaaS, it's really easy to add a service layer if you make the commitment to do it, because it's there's enough of the pie to go around. So take my MX Logic model. We sold retail $2 per user per month. We started selling through the MSP crowd, and we sold it to them for $1.20. Well, they weren't getting, it gives them 40 points. They get 80 cents off a $2 price point. And they never saw those kind of margins before. And we were happy to pass it along. Then we get to the distributors, and we're selling to them for 65 cents per user per month. Okay. And they're selling to the partners for $1.20. So they're making 55 cents on a $1.20 price point. They're making almost 50 points on the deal. Okay. Our largest enterprise customer we sold direct to at MX Logic, we were charging them 45 cents per user per month. It was a 175,000 seat deal with Toshiba. Okay. Our cost to deliver that product was sub 10 cents. Okay. And so it was really easy to follow the pricing model, because, you know, we stayed pure to the pricing model, which makes it effective in the channel. And we have vendors like that now, and we're the 45. We ask our vendors, just charge us like we're buying 1 million seats, like we're a large enterprise, and you will get no flack down line from anybody. The only person you're going to hear from is us. And occasionally we might pass a tier 3 type significant technical, you know, upstream to your tech support group. And you know, back to the MX Logic example, the 55 cent spread per user per month that I was paying to Ingram, I just didn't see the value. And we really, the value they needed to have was, they didn't do any service. They sold it, but I answered to the small MSPs that they were selling to. So I didn't have that layer. Our vendors do not talk to the MSPs. They don't have to. They can, but they love that. They don't have to talk to that guy.
So John, last question.
Sure.
Is because, again, let's come full circle. Because in fact, I'm looking at your background, NASDAQ and Times Square, where you and I met and I had that conversation 2013, 2014, was literally just down the street on 7th Avenue, right?
That's right.
So that was nearly 10 years ago. So let's look forward to 10 years from now. What will our conversation be? So we had the "what the hell are we doing here" conversation 10 years ago. We're having the "look at what we've done" conversation here in the here and now. 10 years from now, what is it going to be?
I think Pax8 is going to emerge as one of these really strong up and coming companies that's more widely known around the world, because we're making this kind of market traction. By 2035, 12 years from now, we should be servicing 200 to 300 million end users worldwide and have really serious clout in the marketplace. And it almost becomes, there's a whole transaction layer to this, just of stitching together all of the pieces of the cloud in a transactional way. And we're sitting right in the middle of this vortex. And so you'll see much more just transaction. It's not about moving money. It's about provisioning and rebilling. And it's payment settlements and these kind of things. So you can almost look at it as a fintech business. Will be a big chunk of it. And you know, we're working on this concept we call a federated marketplace, which I'm sure you're already familiar with. And this is really truly where we see ourselves, and we will be worldwide and we'll be well known. We're like kids in a candy store. There's so many ways to monetize it, and we have to be really good about how we do it. But you know, we think we'll be known as a really great place to work. We already are, and just people will really like to deal with this. And being $100 billion company won't make us necessarily a dominant market share, but you know, the next decade beyond that, we could become dominant. You know, we could really become a dominant player in the world. But I think it's very realistic for us to think about servicing by 2035 6 to 8 to 10 million small businesses and be north of 200 million end users that we're servicing. And still, again, it's a fraction of the market. And what I love about the whole thing is the cloud itself is so liberating. As everybody adopts the cloud, you get full cloud interaction. Beauty of it is, I'm absolutely convinced of this. People have shied away from small business, and the large enterprise guys always say, well, we're going to move down market and service small business. And you and I both know it's much easier to move up market than it is down market. And the whole internet, the whole cloud ecosystem itself is going to become more and more transactional. And we're going to be sitting right in the middle of this vortex. We're already transactional, and it's the large enterprise that's going to get more transactional. In fact, I'll make a prediction right now. It's the large SIs, the large system integrators. They have a very frothy future ahead because there's no one that's going to build a small SaaS niche product that doesn't fully integrate it into the ecosystem. So right out of the chute, when you turn it on, it already integrates into everything you do. So all these guys that are building these big consulting practices, they got to retool their businesses in the next 10 years because there isn't going to be these big lift and shift type, projects that you can make, millions of dollars of consulting fees on. People are going to get smart. Small business is going to rule. You could take a group of clever people that could use AI, that could build a great small business company. We're the small business kings. You work through us. And you, as a small business, you could service large enterprise. You just take a group of clever guys who are running a lifestyle business that can really do some serious damage. And people can work 1,000 hours a year, half-time, and make an extremely good living by leveraging the ecosystem. And we're going to be right in the middle of that.
Fantastic. John Street, great to have you on Changing Channels. So glad that we were able to have this conversation. Best to you and all the people at Pax8.
Thanks, Larry. Great to talk to you.
Well, that's about all the time we have for this episode of Changing Channels. Again, I want to thank our guest, John Street, the co-founder and CEO of Pax8. And I want to thank all of you for joining us again. We do this podcast for you. As I like to say, technology is changing the world, and it's the channel that's bringing that technology to the market. And Channelnomics continues to track all the trends in the channel, all the trends in the market, to help bring you the best information, the best practices to inform your decision-making on channel strategies and channel models. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe to the Channelnomics channel, hit like, tell your friends about us, and also check out our other podcast, In the Margins, my other podcast, Off the Cuff Thoughts about what's happening in the world around us, and our new podcast, The Network Effect with Brent Nendesheim, where we talk with our industry partners about channel automation and channel management best practices. Listen, folks, I hope you join us again next time. Again, I'm Larry Walsh.
Thank you for joining Changing Channels with Larry Walsh, a production of Channelnomics. If you've enjoyed today's episode, hit the like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and share with your friends. For more information about Channelnomics services and insights, follow us on Twitter and YouTube, and check out our website at channelnomics.com. Channelnomics is a registered trademark of, and Changing Channels is copyright by 2112 Enterprises, LLC.